One of his men is a highly respected New York attorney, Lucas A. Ferrara. The other is a self-proclaimed man of the people, known as Mert Roberts. Their aim is to discuss the hottest issues impacting our city, state, and nation. Fasten your seatbelts. Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live, starts now on AM 970, The Answer.
That's interesting, right? What's that?
Well, Lucas, it's called Olympic Electric by Matthew Whalen Music, and I gotta say, this is getting me hyped for the Olympics this winter, so why are we playing this to start the show, Luke?
Well, it's been in the news, so we thought we'd spend a few minutes talking about the Olympics, particularly the whole transgender athlete situation, specifically the bans, the near bans, the kind of bans, and why, as of now, it seems like the door is slamming shut on trans women competing in women's events. Now, let's start with the obvious question nobody wants to ask out loud. Why do we even have men's and women's categories in the first place? Well, the answer is simple, my friends, because of basic biology. That's why. Look, if we had fully mixed Olympics, the podium would be 95% dudes in almost every physical sport. Why? Because men on average have 30 to 40% more upper body strength, 25 to 30% more lower body strength, bigger hearts, bigger lungs, longer limbs, narrower pelvises, higher VO2 max, meaning their bodies can take in and use more oxygen during intense movements or exercise. They have more fast twitch muscle fibers, meaning men are better suited for explosive, high-intensity movements. The list, Mert, is comically long. Thank you, judges. Now, male puberty is basically a permanent performance-enhancing drug that testosterone suppression does not fully undo. We separate the categories because without separation, women would literally disappear from elite sport. That is not hyperbole, my friends. Look at co-ed or open category. It's basically the men's B team. So when someone goes through male puberty and then transitions, even if they nuke their testosterone to female levels, a lot of advantage just stays. That's right, bone density stays. Height and wingspan obviously stays. Muscle memory lingers for years. Lung capacity, that doesn't shrink. Hand size, foot size, heart size, that's all locked in. A 2020 review, Sports Medicine, found trans women retain about 9 to 12% of strength advantage after years of hormone replacement therapy. Another study showed trans women run 12 times faster than cis women, even after testosterone suppression. That's the difference, Mert, between gold and not qualifying. It's swimming like 5 to 10% faster. In boxing, that's a concussion waiting to happen. So the differences are dramatic. So here's the question, Mert. No matter where you stand on this debate, you have to agree the advantages that trans women athletes enjoy are fundamentally unfair.
Well, you know, I'm going to disagree with that because
Really?
The differences, that word you use, differences, is a very good word for this type of discussion because I'm going to harp on the differences in mentalities of men and women. Women love to be inclusive. Women love to give everybody an opportunity. So when this issue comes up, the thing that I often say to myself is, well, since I'm a man, you can't get any more physical than men when compared to women, and that's just reality. There's nothing to do. You can say to, go against that. So as a man, am I okay with a woman trying to compete with men? Wouldn't have a problem with it. Now, when we think about how women view this issue, if women are willing to give men another opportunity to perform and to be a great athlete and to win an award or to be the best athlete on the field. If women are crazy enough to allow men or biological men to compete with them, then that's for them to decide. I have no issues with it because I'm not a woman. So I would leave this up to the women to decide, because it's women who are going to have to decide, are you willing to be so inclusive that you let a man or a biological man, in this case a trans woman?
But you know what? You hit the core of this debate. You hit it on the head, Mert. I bet you didn't even realize it. Is it inclusivity or is it fairness? Because given the physiological advantages, the list that I just went through, women don't have a shot. The percentages I just read through the list. I gave you the percentages from sports publications and from other science journals. Biological men have a physical advantage. So just because women feel, okay, let's do the politically correct thing and let Leona play with us, that's nothing to do with whether or not that's fair.
Well,
that's a fair competition.
You have to take this into account. Are women considering that as a bad thing if they can include somebody and protect their feelings, as opposed to crushing someone's feelings?
I think
so maybe women are
You're
women
very good
are more
at morphing
compassionate.
and graying this topic.
No. I'm
this
not
has
doing that.
nothing to do about feeling good, Mert. This
Don't
has
try to
do
do
with
Don't do
this
that.
turning into a kumbaya moment. Let's all hold hands.
Listen to me real quick
kumbaya.
before you move on. Maybe women are just more concerned with how people feel as opposed to winning a competition.
Goodness.
You know, there can only be
my
one winner.
goodness.
There can only be one winner, but everybody can feel like they participated and enjoy that everybody got to participate. So maybe women are considering that more than the single solitary victor who's going to stand at that number one spot on the podium and put their arm in there and said, I beat everybody in this competition. Maybe women are concerned with that. They'd rather people feel good than to win a competition. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe we should consider that. But this is for women to consider. I'm just throwing out there.
I think that's poppycock. Come on, Ryan. Come on. Do you think this is a matter of feelings or is it about fairness? Come on, break it down, because Mert seems to be lost in his kumbaya moment.
Well, I can see it from both ways, Lucas. I mean, yes, a lot of it is about feelings over facts for some people, depending how you look at it. But I mean, really, it's just such a bigger issue at hand. And
what's so big about it, Ryan?
Well, and I can talk on this eloquently, being that my high school is actually right in the center of this issue, Massapequa High School, where they're in a lawsuit involving the Attorney General, Letitia James, about whether or not they'll allow boys who identify as girls to enter the opposite sex's locker room and vice versa. They're right dead smack in the middle of that lawsuit. It's
because
such big news in the community.
The county executive or whatever wanted to limit men play men's sports and women play biological women.
Yeah, just kind of stick to those lanes, if you will.
Yeah, stick to those categories.
Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman.
But you know what? Letitia James is just pandering to the LGBTQ plus community. We're talking about facts, science. How is it fair?
You see how you just dismissed her? That ain't
yes,
right.
I did.
I
thought I did a good job at that,
because
too. How is that
she's not
fair?
pandering. She has to deal with these people. She's in New York City.
It is such a minority, Mert. It is such a small minority.
That's one of the hubs of that community. So you have to deal with them. They're a force to be reckoned with in the city. So to dismiss them as pandering, that's not what it is. She is respecting. It is pandering,
pure and simple.
She is
the fact
respecting.
that trans women have a physical advantage. Science has proven that without question. And as I said already 5 times, and even hormone therapy and testosterone suppression will not make a difference. I think the science basically is, Mert, if you go through puberty as a biological male, that's it. You have the advantage. You got to stop it very early for it to arguably even have an impact, that might level the playing field, so to speak. But then we start getting into whether or not this is right for kids to do, right? Kids can't vote, but they can determine their sexual identity and opt for a sex change. They can't buy booze, or they can't buy cigarettes, but they can opt and decide whether they want to have a sex change. Let's not go there. Right now we're talking Olympics and sports. And Ryan, I'm really disappointed in you. I thought you had more common sense than that. Hello.
Well, you wouldn't be wrong there. Look, it's just one of those things where you have to try to be as objective as possible.
Objective when you have a science? I thought we all operate from science. Global warming is because of science, even though the science is contested. This science is pretty clear cut.
Well, if you want to do that, then there's a lot of negativity that comes with just basing everything on metrics and things like science. With things like, when you create a car or something like that.
There are objective criteria, Mert. What do you mean?
When you're creating something, I want the science to lead the way. When it comes to emotional things, human beings are very capable of going against science. When you tell somebody, hey, you have a form of cancer that is 95% deadly, the science would say, hey, don't give that person any treatment. But the human being is going to say, 5% is good enough for me to take that chance. We're going to operate. We're going to try to heal this person. So the same thing applies in situations like this. Yes, these trans women are going to have a physical advantage. They're probably going to win the competition in most cases. However, if women are sitting there saying that this is not the overall, this is not very normal, this is not something that you see happening every day, why are we going to crush this one person? And they can be viewing it as that.
Because we crush people all the time. Look, transitioning is tough, Mert. I get it, okay? Being told you can't compete in a category you identify with is painful. I get it. But here's the cold truth, all right? And Mert, and you know what, Ryan? I'm surprised at you too, because you're a sports guy. Elite sport is not therapy.
Listen.
It's not a human right. It's a meritocracy where we deliberately exclude people for things they can't control all the time. Height, genetics, wingspan, fast twitch fiber ratio. Bert, we don't let heavyweight boxers fight lightweights because of inclusion. We don't let 40-year-olds compete in junior tournaments. Why?
Well, they have competitions. They have competitions where everybody can fight each other. But if you want to fight in an organized environment, then that's where the weight classes come into play. So if you want to do it like that, see, you just said something and you didn't even realize it. If you want to have separate divisions, we can do that too. We can have a division where you have to be a biologist.
You can have an open category. Absolutely.
Yes.
But look, the female category exists for one reason, right? To exclude the male advantage. If we stop excluding the male advantage, the category collapses. Full stop. And by the way, the number of trans athletes, tiny. We're talking maybe a dozen people worldwide, according to what I've read. But the precedent affects every single female athlete. Okay, so let's be clear. And even though California is resistant and is trying to stay inclusionary and wants to let trans people compete, that doesn't make it fair.
Well, it's going to take fathers to really crush this thing, because it's going to take a father who sees their daughter getting demolished in a basketball game by some 6'8", heavyweight of a man who decided to transition. I'm sorry for how I'm coming off, but we're talking frankly here. It's going to take men to reverse this, because a lot of women don't care about sports. This is why this is an issue. A lot of women don't really care about sports, so they don't understand those dynamics.
What's her name? Riley? What is her name? Ryan. Riley's James? What's her name?
Gaines.
So she's very outspoken.
But I'm saying, for the most part, a lot of women don't even understand sports to that level where they think that a lot of people think that women can physically compete with men. They think that the women athletes can compete with the male athletes. And these are women who don't understand sports. I mean, just think about Gabby. She really thinks she can beat me in an arm wrestling match.
Oh, that's
but
not
we know
fair.
that
She's
can't
not
happen.
here today.
Gabby Pisani?
Yeah,
Not-
Gabby.
Wow,
We know
my
that
goodness,
can't happen.
she's not here, and you're slamming her. Sorry,
There's only one way to
Gabby.
find that out.
But look at the confidence that she has. And we know that's not going to happen. I'll crush her.
Oh,
no
my
problem.
goodness.
But that's how a lot of women think. They think, hey, we're all having fun competing. Just let them play games. That's how women look at sports. Let them play their little games. Who cares who wins or loses? It's just games. It's games that kids play. So that's why I'm saying we have to – well, I'm leaving this up to women, because if women don't value competition and winning, and the true essence of sports is to dominate your opponent, if they don't believe in that, then who am I to tell them?
But you
they're
know what,
wrong?
Mert? It's not that simple. You've seen the videos of women speaking out, particularly young athletes speaking out, because a trans individual is in their locker room and they're silenced. You've seen the videos of the parents going to school board meetings complaining, and they've been silenced. It's not that simple. People have been trying to speak out, women in particular, and they've been told, shut up, comply, not acceptable. And it's not fair. This is the point of tonight's conversation, the fairness of it. And you know what, my friends? At the federal level, after Trump signed his executive order earlier this year banning trans female athletes from school sports, California and other states filed lawsuits. So we have some states inclusive, other states restrictive, and a federal government leaning toward bans for athletes. This means opportunity in one state, exclusion in another. That's crazy to me. The lack of consistency is troublesome. It's confusing, particularly for young people. Many of us feel for trans athletes. We certainly do. Nobody should be bullied or excluded. But women's sports is already the most unequal, underfunded, disrespected space in athletics. We finally got people paying attention to women's sports. WNBA viewership exploding. Women's soccer selling out. And now we're going to let male-bodied athletes take that too? No way. Thank you, judges. Let's keep the women's category intact. Introduce open categories like we suggested, Mert. Trans women should absolutely have a place to complete, just not in one space set aside for a biological woman. That's not hate, my friends. That's fairness. And you are listening to episode 75 of Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas Live. We are honored to have you along for the ride. 75. Come on, let me hear an amen. This is Lucas thank you, audience. This is Lucas Ferrara, and we're ever mindful that without you, we are nothing. So we're truly grateful for your support. We've got some great guests for you. But before we unleash them, you've heard from my wonderful co-host, the Mertinator, the one and only Mert Roberts, working and engineering the board, producing the show, none other than Ryan Pagano. He's got a critically acclaimed podcast called Pags' Perspective. You should check it out. Master Control, we've got Ashley Ferranti. Thank you all. In just a little bit, we'll be chatting with Rachel Corbett. She's an award-winning journalist and author whose work bridges art, literature, and true crime. Her latest book, The Monsters We Make, explores the evolution of criminal profiling and the cultural forces that shape our understanding of the criminal mind. And during hour 2, we'll be chatting with Darren Kinder, a Medal of Valor recipient and retired U.S. Secret Service Special Agent. He's got a book out. It's called Bury Me in a Dirty Suit, and we're going to be talking to him about his experiences 9/11 and talk about his book. But when we return, Rachel Corbett. So stay tuned. Shake it off with me, Mert, Ryan, Rachel Corbett, and everyone here at AM 970. You better not leave us, because Rachel advises that monsters really hate being ignored. It gets them very upset. In fact, it makes them monstrous.
In today's fast-paced world, professionals face endless projects, deadlines, competition. To thrive, you need mental clarity, sharp focus, and reliable memory. That's why the same company that brings you Relief Factor created Think Factor. Think Factor is designed to help you think clearer and perform better daily. It's a powerful blend of nutrients that supercharges your memory and sharpens your focus. You can stay on top of your work and outshine the competition. After a couple of weeks of taking Think Factor, I noticed a dramatic difference in my clarity, my focus, even my memory. And you know what? The longer you take Think Factor, the better the results are. If you've ever felt mentally foggy or struggled to keep up with everything on your plate, well, Think Factor can help you reclaim your cognitive edge and thrive in your life. Call 800-4RELIEF, 800, the number 4RELIEF, or visit ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com to order Think Factor. Call 800-4RELIEF or visit ReliefFactor.com. Your first bottle, just $19.95. Think Factor. Think clearer, perform better daily.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate. Hey, it's Joe Piscopo, and I'm talking to my friends right here in Jersey. Toyotathon is on at Route 22 Toyota in Hillside, New Jersey, and they're celebrating the holidays with the biggest event of the year. If a new ride is on your wish list, this is the moment. Route 22 Toyota has incredible deals on all your favorite models, and for qualified buyers, you can save big with leases starting at just $99 a month or 0.99 financing for up to 72 months. Plus, check out their huge selection of pre-owned and Toyota certified used vehicles. At Route22Toyota.com, end-of-year incentives could get you out of what you're driving now and into a brand-new Toyota for the same or even less than you're paying today. Call 973-705-8905 to get all the details and schedule a risk-free appraisal. That's 973-705-8905. Let the team at Route 22 Toyota in Hillside, New Jersey upgrade your vehicle and have you driving into 2026 in style. Toyotathon is on now at Route 22 Toyota. Unity Bank is dedicated to community-oriented banking and offers a full range of services, including business and personal accounts, business loans, and mortgages. Unity has locations throughout New Jersey and in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, expanding its footprint to 21 retail locations. Grow your savings with their great CD specials. Visit unitybank.com to find out more. Unity Bank is also a great place to work. As Unity Bank President and CEO James Hughes says, the people make Unity Bank a great place to work. We give our employees an opportunity to grow. At Unity Bank, there are no excess layers of bureaucracy as found at Goliath-sized banks. All employees have full access to management with encouragement to make decisions and grow their careers. Visit unitybank.com. That's unitybank.com for current CD and savings specials. They are FDIC insured, an equal opportunity employer, and an equal housing lender. Unity Bank, growing with you.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Ooh, that's ominous, Ryan. What's that?
Very ominous indeed. It's called Evil Coming by M. Ron, sounds like we're going to be talking about some pretty spooky stuff here with this next segment.
Evil for sure. Rachel Corbett is an award-winning journalist and author whose work spans the world of art, literature, and true crime. She made her mark with You Must Change Your Life, a celebrated exploration of the friendship between poet Rainer Maria Rilke and sculptor Auguste Rodin, which won the National Award for Arts Writing. Her latest book, The Monsters We Make, dives deep into the history of criminal profiling, tracing its roots from Victorian detective work to modern behavioral science, and asks hard questions about how we understand the criminal mind. Raised in Iowa and now based in New York, Rachel has written for The New Yorker, The New York Times Magazine, and The Atlantic. Today, she joins us to talk about the stories behind her work, the fascination with profiling, and the monsters, real and imagined, that shape our world. Welcome to the program, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
We have a monster at AM 970. His name is Mert Roberts, and he's also known as the Mertinator. So I'm going to hand you over to the Mertinator. Be careful, Rachel.
Listen, you gotta protect me better now. We're supposed to be partners in this. You can't say bad stuff about me. That's not right.
I'm just going with the monster theme. But
listen, these type of books are very fascinating because I get wrapped up all the time, on Netflix especially, all these criminal documentaries. It's like that's the only thing on there now, but I can't get enough of this stuff. Let me ask you a question, Rachel. Do you think it's a poor reflection upon us that we try to understand criminals? Should we even try to do that, or should we just punish them, put them behind bars, and be done with them? Or is it say something about us that we get so wrapped up, fascinated? The number one movies on Netflix all the time are some criminal. It's the Diddy documentary right now. Everything is about who's the baddest person, and we end up turning these people, Ted Bundy, the Ice Truck, all these people, we turn them into celebrities. So isn't that a bad reflection upon us, or would you disagree with that?
Well, there's a couple of things in what you said. For one thing, no, I think it's very human to be interested in this stuff. If there wasn't a huge demand for it, they wouldn't make all these shows. I think we're terrified of these people. I mean, what's scarier than a serial killer? And I think that watching all this media is a way to kind of feel in control of that fear. If you feel like you can understand it, then, you kind of neuter its power over you, But also at the same time, understanding the criminal mind, I think, is a very worthy pursuit. But I'm not sure that a lot of these shows are really teaching us a whole lot of reality in that regard.
Let me go a different direction for a second. Sorry to cut you off, but think about this guy, Luigi. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Mangione.
The guy that shot the insurance CEO you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
Is this like what your book is talking about, the thin line between a monster and, us as a whole? Because I was reading a byline. I forget what it was, but it said something about a thin line between criminals and the people who track them down and everything in between. So a guy like that who's being looked at as a hero, as somebody who did the right thing, but he's a murderer. What are your thoughts on that situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if people think he did the right thing. I mean, well, I guess some people I'm sure do. But, I think it's that, it's when I think about the monsters we make, I think it's that, we as a society play a role both in the actual actions of these people, but also in the stories we tell about them and the mythologies that we create around them. So, Mangione is a really particular guy who's become something so far beyond who he actually is. We don't even know the first thing about him. We've never even heard him talk.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but he's become this hero, anti-hero, villain, however you see it. So I think, the thin line between those who do harm and those who claim to stop it is a little tricky, because in the book I also look at a lot of profilers who actually get in the way and may be causing more harm than they mean to.
That's interesting. What do you like? How does a profiler cause harm? If they're doing
so for example,
job?
Today profiling has evolved over the years, and today it's really more of a like predictive policing, algorithmic policing, data profiling, that kind of thing. And there's been, I look at a situation in Florida where the sheriff is profiling children to try to decide who among them will become criminals in the future. And you can imagine all the ways this goes wrong. Because
Absolutely.
You can't predict that. You just can't. And so they were targeting these kids for enhanced policing and kind of putting them into the criminal justice system, really for things that were outside their control. You know, if they had an incarcerated parent or these certain risk factors that were determined.
Sorry, Lucas. I know I'm stepping on you here, but I just got one more question because I'm excited that she's on because I love this type.
Yeah, he is excited, Rachel. He's normally not this animated. I guess it must be the monster theme. I'm not sure.
But one final question before I let Lucas get in here is: so are you against improving on these methods and using like artificial intelligence and technology to be more predictive in determining who might commit crimes, or do you feel like we should not go any further into that, or are you supporting that? I'm trying to figure out where's your head on that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really dangerous, and the problem is we don't know what these systems are doing. You know, if we knew that, okay, they're feeding the artificial intelligence, what are they feeding it? Old police records, for, you know, if in the old days, police used to do stop and frisk, or they racially profile, all that. Are they feeding it that data in order to determine who the next, who else might commit a crime? Because that's bad. That's not objective. So, but they're very obscure. They don't really tell us what's going in to create these algorithms. What's the basis for them? So, if that's the case, I think that we have to. It's too dangerous, but. There are certain applications that I think can be useful. It's not like everything is bad, but I wish there was more transparency in what exactly these systems are.
Were you against CompStat? I don't know if you're familiar with it, but CompStat, like with Giuliani in the 90s and stuff like that? That's part of the problem with something like CompStat is they were using all kinds of old police work, and so it was ended up showing that like certain neighborhoods with certain racial characteristics were, overrepresented in the way that police were targeting them. So it ended up being a fairly racist practice, even though it wasn't intended to be, of course. Eric Adams was one of the people who worked on it in its earliest days. But, yeah, it was a good idea that kind of went a little bit sideways.
We have a few minutes before our first commercial break, Rachel, and of course you'll come back after the break. But how did you go from writing about art and poetry to tackling the darker subject of crime? How did you make that transition? What inspired you? You got about a minute or so before our commercial.
Yeah, it's a big leap. But I'm interested in many things. I also I write in the introduction to the book, I have a personal connection to the subject of true crime. There was, when I was a child, the man that my mother dated after her divorce from my father for several years, ended up, after they split, ended up killing his next girlfriend and then himself.
What?
And so I would, yeah. So true crime is something I've always been fascinated by, and I went back to kind of investigate this crime as an adult. And almost kind of profile this man who I'd known as a child. So profiling is something I've really always been fascinated in, and trying to understand something. This was a man who had never been violent. How could something so shocking and out of character happen? What's in this guy's head? I think for me it's a bit personal, that question.
Wow. Well, you know what, Rachel, we have to go to a commercial break, but have no fear. Rachel Corbett will be rejoining us after these commercial messages. She's got a great book, Monsters We Make. It's available now at Amazon and other major booksellers. And for more information, visit the website, ready for this, rachelacorbett.com. rachel-corbett.com. That's RACHEL-CORBETT.com. We'll post links on our website. Check it off live. Mert, Ryan, Rachel Corbett and I certainly hope you stay tuned. When we come back, Rachel Corbett will talk more about profiling and the criminal mind. Better stay tuned, because the monsters are listening too.
Last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Hi, it's Arthur Idali here for Bay Ridge Honda, run by my family friend Rob Sabah, the family-owned and operated Honda dealer, proudly serving the 5 boroughs for over 60 years. I've gotten cars there. My whole family's gotten cars there. More people I know have gotten cars there than I could possibly list. You know why? Because everyone I know goes to Bay Ridge Honda, because Rob Sabah and his team are the best and most trusted in the business, and they truly treat you like family. Happy Honda days are here, and there's no better time to get into an SUV built for the winter. Drive home a 2025 Ridgeline Sport for as low as $289 a month with $4,299 down, or get behind the wheel of a 2026 Passport RTL, also starting at just $389 a month with $4,599 down. Don't wait. Stop by Bay Ridge Honda at 4th Avenue and 88th Street in Brooklyn, New York, or visit BayRidgeHonda.com for complete details.
Nowadays, when a lot of food is good and expensive, Michael's of Brooklyn is something that's just plain good. And if you want the best homemade Italian food, then you must get to Michael's of Brooklyn, Avenue R off Nostrand Avenue. Say hello to Fred and tell him Kevin McCullough sent you here to eat fantastic fresh pasta. And if you can't get to Michael's of Brooklyn, then how about joining the Sauce of the Month Club? You get a different jar of Michael's of Brooklyn pasta sauce and homemade pasta and biscotti each month for 6 months. Each month, receive exquisite sauces ranging from arrabbiata to puttanesca and, of course, the fresh marinara. They're family-owned and operated, and I can attest to the authenticity of every one of their recipes. That's why it's stacked in my pantry. Everything is made completely from scratch. Even the sauce they sell in the grocery stores nationwide. They make it right there at Michael's of Brooklyn. So visit michaelsofbrooklyn.com and join the Sauce of the Month Club. That's michaelsofbrooklyn.com, or call 718-998-7851. Michael's of Brooklyn, serving the community since 1964.
Salem News Channel, your go-to source for news and conservative opinion. We reveal how politics hits home, how your family, your freedoms, your way of life are debated, challenged, even regulated. Every day we cut through the noise, pitting nonsense against common sense. On every screen, in every home, Salem News Channel is across America.
As a local business owner, you get called every week by marketing companies. We get it. We have hundreds of satisfied customers. Here's what a satisfied client recently said.
Open enrollment is going great. We're hitting record numbers. Thank you so much for this report. It really is amazing to see how the marketing is really shaping our enrollment around the city.
If you're a local business and ready for the next step, Google Salem Surround New York right now. Our experts are ready to help you take your marketing to the next level. Google Salem Surround New York today.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Welcome back. We're joined now by Rachel Corbett. She's an award-winning journalist and author whose writing spans art, literature, and true crime. I can't even say it. Her latest book, The Monsters We Make, traces the history of criminal profiling from Victorian detective work to modern behavioral science, offering fresh insights into how we understand the criminal mind. Her book, Monsters We Make, is available now on Amazon and other major booksellers. For more information, visit her website, rachel-corbett.com. That's RACHEL-CORBETT.com. We'll post links to Rachel and her books on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Now, Rachel, Mert has a follow-up for you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why they call him the Mertinator. Rachel,
yes.
Go.
I just want to have this on record. If Rachel turns out to be a serial mass murderer, I just want to say I called it first, so I can be featured on the documentary. And I just want to ask you another question. I just want to get that out of the way because I want to be featured in this story. Because
oh my God, that's defamatory.
I want you to explain. I want you to explain what are some of the things that you learned about from the Victorian era, until today, because that's quite a bit of time and the evolution of how we look at criminals and all that stuff. I'm very fascinated. Over that time period, what have you learned? Because doing that type of research, you might be able to be a gifted criminal because you know all the techniques if you did your research properly. So what have you learned that stood out to and would make everybody go, wow, is that how things have changed, or is there really not much difference?
Well, I swear I'm a very nice person. That's what
somebody would say. Somebody would say that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so I started the book in Victorian England because this is about the time that what's considered the first modern profile was written, and it was actually for the Jack the Ripper case. It was something that had stumped Scotland Yard for so long. They needed a new strategy, and they had one of their police surgeons, a guy called Thomas Bond, take a different approach. Normally, he looked at the autopsies and the crimes, maybe crime scene evidence, that sort of thing. But in this case, he decided to write down what he thought would be personality characteristics of the criminal. Whether he was educated or not, what he might wear, how he might look. And he wrote up some interesting findings. He thought that he was not medically trained, as some people thought, because Jack would, excise the organs of some of his victims. Some people thought he was maybe a doctor. Thomas Bond didn't believe that. He thought he was probably a very cool and calm man because he would commit these crimes just right out in the middle of the street in the open, and a variety of other things. And this was sort of a new way of police work. And actually, at the same time, Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, also did a little work with the police to try to see if he could discover who Jack the Ripper was. And he also kind of wrote a profile of sorts. He thought it was someone very, very educated, maybe someone who'd traveled to America or was even American, and all these kinds of findings. So I find it fascinating because you see, even at the beginning of profiling, this overlap between true crime and fiction. It's kind of always been there. The fact that a novelist was working with the police even back then. And this is also a period when phrenology was getting big, which is that the pseudoscience that believed that you could look at the bumps on someone's skull or the shape of their face and determine from that whether they're a criminal or not.
Right.
So in that case, it really ties back to modern times where they were trying to predict things based on really shoddy science with, pretty troubling results in both cases.
But profiling, the way you described it, Rachel, and please excuse me, it sounds very subjective. Was Bond making this stuff up? I mean, it's all guesswork, isn't it? I could come up with a theory, too.
Yeah, I mean, So profiling, I think most people think of it as from the 1970s and the FBI's behavioral science unit. And, these guys were meant to be the experts in the sense that they had a lot of investigative work background. They had a lot of knowledge from looking at crime scenes. But they only really took like a couple psychology classes here and there. So the problem is that, they did have knowledge, but they were kind of guessing also too, using their hunches as officers and, or FBI agents rather. And I think that's where, again, we run into problems. There's already a lot of psychiatric data and studies on violence and the violent mind. So I think that maybe it'd be better to use that research, and then, keep the police work a bit separate.
Right.
What surprised
you most? What surprised you most in your research about the evolution of behavioral science?
I think it's that I didn't realize how much the creation of the FBI Behavioral Science Unit and the huge popularity. Mindhunter, the show, is based on those guys and John Douglas, who wrote the book, those FBI agents. They very consciously drummed up this serial killer epidemic in the 70s and then in the 80s because the FBI was had a bad reputation after the J. Edgar Hoover years. It had lost its funding. So they went out and they went to the press and they said, we've got serial killers killing 4,000, 5,000 people every year. This was the period of Ted Bundy, who was out there killing a lot of people, but it wasn't anywhere near that number. It was actually more like 400 to 500. And they trumpeted this problem and then presented themselves as the only solution. So, they're like, well, we have these elite mind hunters who dwell in the basement of Quantico and have this almost supernatural power to see into the minds of murderers. But this, of course, wasn't real. And so, but they managed to create this big panic around serial murder, and the public freaked out, and they pressured their congresspeople to give more funding to the FBI, and they expanded their jurisdiction. So it was successful in a kind of political sense, but it didn't really produce a ton of meaningful captures of criminals. There's one study that found that only 2.7% of profiles lead to the identification of a suspect.
So only about 3%. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's bad.
So Rachel, do you think that you would be able to step into the shoes of a profiler and do a good job at it after all the research you've done? I'm just curious about that because, it's easy to talk about other people and how they did it or what they could do, but do you think you would be a good profiler if asked to be one?
Oh, probably
or would you
not.
You wouldn't feel, was it because you wouldn't feel comfortable, or like what is the reason why you feel like you wouldn't then?
Look, I guess look at how critical I'm being of it, and then to say, well, but I could do it,
Right.
I think that would be a little hypocritical. I don't think I'm any smarter than these guys, these FBI agents who train in the stuff. They're knowledgeable people.
That might make you an excellent one, though. You might say, you know what, maybe your lack of confidence, could that potentially make you a good profiler? Because maybe what you notice is that a lot of these guys are so confident in what they already perceive to be that having rewriting that mentality into, let me try to think about this situation on its own instead of jumping to conclusions. Maybe that would make somebody a better profiler. Or do you have to have preconceptions and, biases if we want to just make... You go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have the benefit, if you can call it that, of having known a murderer very up close and personal.
Right.
I have that insight. I'm not sure how well that would apply to other people, but I guess that's a little bit of something special I can bring to the table. But yeah.
Well, that's actually interesting. So when you were, and I'm sorry if this is difficult to talk about, but was living with that individual different than anything? Did anything stand out, or is it just like I'm really genuinely shocked that this person was able to do it.
I was very genuinely shocked because he was this very kind, quiet guy, never violent in any way whatsoever. But, you know, what was interesting is when I looked back as I was older, I read he actually did really fit a profile of someone who commits a murder-suicide. Murder-suicide is a really particular crime, unlike any other kind of murder. They tend to be white men in rural places, like we were in Iowa. The victim's almost always a female partner, which was true in this case. It's always a gun, almost always a gun. So he ticked all of these boxes, and I was like, wow. I guess he. And they often have no history of violence. But when I was thinking, but it didn't make sense to me when it didn't reconcile with the man I knew. It just felt like, okay, he fits the data points, but I still can't understand this. That's why I think I've tried so hard to make.
Did you try to look into
rational.
Did you look into his case as well, or did you not dive into that? Let me ask you this. Something I'd be very curious about was the woman that he killed similar to your mother. Did they have any similarities? Because maybe he has a type, and you can combine that with the type of guy he is, and maybe like we start getting into a web of a bigger profile where we can say, well, they like these type of women and this type of guy, and you start connecting the dots. So were there any similarities between your mother and the woman he murdered?
Well, you know, they were sort of a similar age. My mother was a little bit older. She had a son who was the same age as me, though, which always was something that kind of was a very eerie fact to me. I don't know how. I don't think they were super similar. I never met her, so it's hard for me to say.
Right.
You know, she was living in the same town, the same Iowa town. You know, but I'm not sure. They had different color hair. So
right.
Not really that type, yeah.
Rachel, we only have, believe it or not, we only have a few minutes left. The time has just flown by. What do you want people to take away from your book? Anything in particular, or any thoughts you want to share about the monsters we make?
Yeah, well, I think it's just that I think it's mainly I guess I'm mainly speaking to kind of the true crime audience, the people who like the podcasts and the radio shows and all of that when I say this. But I think I don't think there's anything wrong with being interested in what we're interested in. But I do think that, you know, it gives us a sort of false sense of control. It sort of pacifies us in a way when we see a show where the murder's wrapped up in 42 minutes and 3 acts. It feels satisfying. You know, there's these people talk about, especially women, talk about going to sleep at night listening to true crime because it's weirdly soothing.
Right.
Because I think everything gets tied up, and maybe they feel like they even learn some strategies from these shows. But it's really not real, and I think that in thinking that we're learning something, what are we actually blinded to, or is it distracting us from something else? You know, that's the part I think I would like people to think about a bit more, is what we're doing when we...
Excellent question.
Unfortunately, Rachel, we have run out of time. Rachel's book, Monsters We Make, is available at Amazon and other booksellers. For more information, visit her website, rachel-corbett.com. We'll also post links to Rachel and her books on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Thank you for coming on, Rachel. It was a pleasure, and we must have you back.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. It was fun.
When we come back, we'll be joined by Darren Kinder, a Medal of Valor recipient and retired U.S. Secret Service special agent whose life was forever changed when he survived the 9/11 attacks. He's the author of Bury Me in a Dirty Suit and founder of Fierce Faith, inspiring audiences to live with courage, integrity, and a Christ-centered purpose. So it's imperative you come back after the news at the top of the hour. Suffer through a few commercial messages, but once it's all done, Mert, Ryan, Darren Kinder, and I, along with the rest of the AM 970 team will be waiting right here for you. We know you want it, so please come back for hour 2 of Shake It Off with Merton Lucas Live. Lots more controversy and maybe, just maybe, some answers. Hour 2 is coming. So is Darren Kinder, Medal of Valor, Secret Service survivor of 9/11. Don't vanish during the break, because if you do, we might just bury you in a dirty suit.
The preceding hour of programming, sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.